Aurelia Prime did not rise. It resonated. The planet was a symphony of polished stone and captured light from orbit. It looked less like a world and more like an instrument, dominated by the colossal gloss stone pillars that pierced the upper atmosphere. They were not reflective. They drank the sunlight, drew it down into the planet's core, and exhaled it as a soft, pearlescent luminescence that bathed the capital day and night. This was the seat of the Aurelian Empire, and its glow was visible 2 sectors away. Noah Hale watched the planet swell in the main view screen of the diplomatic cutter. He despised the feeling of manufactured awe. He was a linguist, a man paid by the human commonwealth to deconstruct wonder and find the grammar of power beneath it. Yet, even he had to admit, the Aurelians knew how to make an entrance. His knuckles were white on the armrest. A tension he consciously tried to release. Breathe in, count to 4. Breathe out. Find a synonym for ostentatious. The Commonwealth was the junior partner in this alliance, a trade ally, useful for moving goods, providing novel tech, and filling out the galactic roster. Militarily, they were regarded by the ancient empires as enthusiastic amateurs. This perception was a shield Noah used, but it was also a cage. His mandate was simple: assist Empress Seraphine Kale's council in finalizing a new border treaty. It was a dry, procedural affair, which was exactly why he suspected he was the wrong man for the job. Dry, procedural affairs did not usually coincide with the kind of chatter he had been hearing at the listening posts. The cutter shuddered gently, caught by the outer resonance field. Noah felt the vibration not in his ears, but in his teeth, a low thrum that set his nerves on edge. It reminded him of the silence just before the engines of his family's freighters had gone quiet, before the Karth Dominion had shown him the difference between a trade route and a feeding ground. The Karth. He pushed the memory down, a familiar and futile exercise. The Karth did not conquer. They stalked, they studied, they weakened a target from the shadows, learning its rhythms, its supply lines, its psychological breaking points. They bled it with 1,000 small cuts, rumors, and proxy skirmishes until the prey was too exhausted to fight. Only then, when the collapse was inevitable, did they strike. A fleet of shadows, a communications blackout, a clean, silent butchering. They had stalked his family's convoy for 6 months. Noah had the logs to prove it. Logs no one but him had survived to read. "Envoy Hale!" The pilot's voice crackled, jarring him from the past. "We are cleared for final approach to the Umbral Plaza. Her Majesty's honor guard is awaiting—" Noah stood, smoothing the front of his modest diplomatic tunic. It was charcoal gray, deliberately unremarkable. "Thank you, Captain. Let us go see the woman who rules a planet of stone and light." He stepped out onto the landing platform, and the air itself seemed to press against him, warm and smelling faintly of ozone and heated quartz. The light was omnipresent, a soft, milky glow that diffused all shadows and made everything feel exposed. The Umbral Plaza was a vast expanse of obsidian, designed to contrast the sky, making the figures upon it stand out in stark relief. And the figure at its center was Empress Seraphine Kale. She was not what he expected. The broadcast portrayed her as a distant, cold icon. The woman standing before him was composed. Yes, but not cold. She was still. A stillness that seemed to draw the planet's ambient light toward her. She wore no crown, only a simple, flowing robe of deep indigo that seemed to absorb the luminescence around her. Her hair was dark, pulled back severely, and her eyes were scanning him. Not his face, not his uniform, but his center of gravity, his posture, the way his hand twitched toward his pocket. She was, he realized with a jolt, reading him, Not as a diplomat, as a threat or a tool. Noah stopped at the prescribed distance, bowing just deeply enough to satisfy protocol without offering subservience. It was a precise calculation, a gesture of respect for the office, not an admission of inferiority for his species. Your Imperial Majesty, I am Noah Hale. The human Commonwealth sends its profound respects and gratitude for your hospitality. He kept his voice even, projecting simple, earnest sincerity. Seraphine Kale did not smile. She inclined her head, a gesture so minimal it was almost an absence of movement. Her voice, when it came, was low, not loud, yet it cut through the resonant air without effort. Envoy Hale, your reputation as a mediator precedes you. Aurelia Prime welcomes your perspective. We trust your journey was untroubled. It was a standard diplomatic pleasantry, but the way she said untroubled, her gaze unwavering, made it feel like a test. He knew she had read the same intelligence briefings he had. The ones that spoke of ghost signals and missing patrols along the border. Noah offered a small, self-deprecating smile, the one he used on stubborn trade delegates. As untroubled as any journey can be, Your Majesty. I find space is largely cooperative. It is the schedules that prove malevolent. A few of the armored guards behind her shifted, a ripple of amusement or annoyance he could not tell. The Aurelians were famously difficult to read, their culture built on layers of resonance, shared understanding, and public silence. Seraphine's expression did not change, but he thought he saw a flicker of acknowledgement in her dark eyes, an understanding that he had deliberately chosen a light word for a heavy moment. Your levity is noted, envoy, she said. It was impossible to tell if it was a compliment or a reprimand. You will be escorted to your quarters. The treaty review will commence following the fleet observance tomorrow. Until then, rest. Our light can be taxing for new eyes. She turned, her guards moving as one, a silent, disciplined wave of indigo and silver. Noah watched her go. She had not broken eye contact once. He had the distinct impression of having been weighed, measured, and found. Interesting. He let out the breath he had been holding. Well, he murmured to himself, at least she did not have me arrested. That is usually a good sign. His quarters were carved from the gloss stone itself. The walls thrummed with the same low-frequency energy from the plaza. It was like trying to sleep inside a giant, purring cat. He spent the night not sleeping, but cross-referencing sensor logs from the border with trade manifests. The rumors were true, and they were worse than the Commonwealth believed. The Karth were not just probing, they were mapping. For months, they had been stalking the shared Aurelian-human trade routes. Ghost ships would appear, systems would fail, and small freighters would report drive anomalies, arriving at port with cargo holds lighter than they should be. Not robbery, skimming, a slow draining of resources, of fuel, of morale. It was the classic Karth prelude. Stage 1 stock, Stage 2 drain, Stage 3, the final, brutal stage strike. His family had been caught somewhere between 2 and 3. The next day, the Umbral Plaza was filled. The fleet observance was a display of Aurelian power, a diplomatic parade meant to reassure allies and warn rivals. Warships, sleek and organic as manta rays, sliced through the luminescent sky, their engines singing in harmony with the pillars. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Noah stood on a balcony reserved for diplomatic corps, positioned strategically next to the delegation from the Karth Dominion. A small, polite, how do you do in the cold calculus of galactic politics. Their leader, a tall, gaunt being named Zerak, ignored him completely. Zarak was watching the parade with a predator's focus, his head tilted as if listening for a discordant note. Seraphine was on the central dais, a remote figure in ceremonial white. She was speaking, her voice amplified by the plaza's acoustics, her words echoing with programmed delay. "We stand today, united in light, as a testament to—" That was when the first scream cut through the air. It was not a vocal scream. It was electronic, a piercing, serrated static that ripped through the plaza's sound system, overriding the Empress's voice. The ships above wavered, their harmonic engines disrupted. Noah's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. It was an echo beacon, a Karth hunting marker, designed to disorient prey and sever communications. On the massive screens flanking the plaza, the live feed of the parade was replaced. At first, it was just static. Then an image resolved. It was a trade channel broadcast, a convoy of human merchant ships, the Commonwealth Star at its head. The feed was grainy, panicked. "Mayday! Mayday!" a voice yelled. "We are hemorrhaging power. Something is... It is all around us. We cannot see it. The signal warped. The image of the Commonwealth Star elongated, twisted, and then vanished. Not exploded. Vanished. As if it had been swallowed whole. The plaza screens went black, a collective gasp. A massive inhalation of shock swept the crowd. The echo beacon cut off, plunging the plaza into a deafening, terrifying silence. Noah looked at Seraphine. She had not moved. Her face was pale, but her hands, resting on the dais, were perfectly still. She looked for a moment like a statue, frozen in the planet's accusing light. Then the murmur began, a low, angry sound from the assembled Aurelian nobles on the lower balconies. The humans, their weakness. "They brought this plague to us." The Karth delegation, Noah noted, looked positively bored. Zarak was calmly adjusting the cuff of his tunic. The silence from the dais was broken. "The observance is concluded," Seraphine's voice rang out, tight but unbroken. "The council will convene in 1 hour. This delegation is in recess." The emergency session of the Aurelian Council was a bloodbath, and Noah was the bait. He sat in the observer's chair, a token courtesy, while nobleman after nobleman rose to condemn the Commonwealth. "This weakness invites the predator," declared Lord Valerius, his face a mask of patrician fury. "The Karth only hunt the sick, and the humans are sick. They bring their scent of fear to our borders. We must sever the trade alliance," another urged. "Close the routes. Let the Karth feed on them, if it keeps our own ships safe." Through it all, Seraphine sat on the Empress's throne, a simple chair of unpolished gloss stone. She just watched. She listened. Her face unreadable. Noah felt a strange, detached admiration for her composure. She was letting them bleed the poison out. When they had exhausted their rhetoric, they turned to her, demanding action. "Your Majesty, you must choose. Concede the border territories to the Karth as a gesture of peace, or prepare our people for a war we cannot win." All eyes were on Seraphine. The chamber was so quiet, Noah could hear the faint hum of the walls. She looked at Lord Valerius. She looked at the military attachés. She looked at the empty seat of the human trade liaison. Finally, her gaze settled, just for a second, on Noah. "We will not be governed by fear," she said, her voice soft but absolute. "The Karth have shown their hand. It would be impolite not to study it." She stood. "This council is suspended for 48 hours. I will have my decision then. Until that time, all trade routes remain open, and all fleets remain at full alert. You are dismissed." She swept from the room, leaving a vacuum of stunned, angry silence in her wake. She had given them nothing. She had stayed quiet. Noah knew he had 48 hours. 48 hours until the Aurelians cut the Commonwealth loose and left humanity to face the Dominion alone. 48 hours to find something, anything, that would change the equation. The emergency diplomatic reception that evening was a farce, a desperate attempt by Seraphine's aides to project normalcy. The mood in the Crystal Gardens was brittle, the air thick with unspoken accusations. The hum of the pillars felt less like a purr and more like a growl. Noah was circulating, offering polite non-answers, his mind racing. He had been watching the Karth delegation. They were too calm, too smug. They moved through the anxious Aurelian court like sharks in a koi pond. Serac, their leader, was holding court near a fountain of luminescent water. He was regaling a fawning group of minor nobles, his deep voice a soothing balm of lies. And Noah noticed his shoes. It was an absurd detail. In a room full of galaxy-ending tensions, he was focused on footwear, but the shoes were distracting. They were not leather or synth. They appeared to be alive, bio-boots, dark, chitinous material that pulsed with a slow, faint rhythm, as if they were breathing. They were grotesque, and clearly, obscenely expensive. Noah saw his opening. It was a desperate, insane gamble, born of a linguistic theory that humor is the ultimate solvent for masks. He moved through the crowd, a tray of untouched appetizers in his hand as a prop. He approached the group, his expression one of mild, academic curiosity. "Envoy Serac," Noah said, his voice polite, cutting through the noble's sycophantic laughter. Serac turned, his eyes flat and cold. "Envoy Hale, I did not expect to see a human still on world. I thought you would be relocating." The nobles chuckled nervously. Noah smiled, that same harmless, self-deprecating smile. He gestured with his head toward Serac's feet. "I just had to come over and say it," Noah said, his voice carrying just enough for the surrounding cluster to hear. "In all my travels, I have seen some remarkable bioengineering, but truly, sir, nice shoes." There was a half-second of stunned silence. Then Serac, against all probability, laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. Like stones grinding together, the nobles, seeing their cue, erupted in relieved, braying laughter. The tension broke. Serac, the predator, had been charmed by the prey. "They are they not?" Serac said, preening. "A gift from the breeders of Kor. They adapt to the wearer's circulatory system." "Fascinating," Noah said, his eyes wide with fake admiration. "A truly bespoke fit." The group moved on, Serac leading them away. But the interaction had been noted. The human envoy, the weakling, had made the Karth predator laugh. It was a small, bizarre victory. But Noah was not watching Serac. He was watching the high-definition archival camera embedded in the crystal column nearby. As the group laughed, the camera, as per its programming, had zoomed in on the source of the amusement, on Serac, and on his shoes. Noah slipped away from the party, his heart hammering against his ribs. He made his way to a public data kiosk, his diplomatic credentials giving him access to the evening's archival footage. He found the timestamp. He replayed the moment, the laughter, Serac's preening, the camera's tight zoom. He paused the frame. He enhanced. The camera had caught the sole of Serac's left boot as he turned. It was just a glimpse, but it was enough. Pressed into the living chitin of the heel was a motif, a small, biomechanical sigil. It was a swirling, serrated spiral, almost organic. Noah pulled up the recording from the Umbral Plaza The fragmented, degraded signal of the echo beacon. He ran a waveform analysis, converting the audio to a visual pattern. The result chilled him to the bone. The waveform of the hunting beacon was not random static. It was a signal, a repeating pattern, a serrated, swirling spiral. It was a perfect match. The shoes were not just shoes. They were transmitters, or receivers. Part of the network. The Karth were not just at the border. They were in the palace. They were walking the halls, drinking the wine, and laughing at the jokes. The ambassador himself was a walking piece of the weapon system. He stood there for a full minute, the thrum of the walls the only sound. He had his proof. The Karth were embedded, a spy network, right under Seraphine's nose. He turned from the kiosk and nearly collided with a wall of indigo and silver. Two of Seraphine's personal guards stood there, silent as the stone they were carved from. They had not made a sound. "Envoy hail," the lead guard said, his voice a low resonance. "The Empress will see you. Now." He was escorted, not to the throne room, but to a small, private study deep in the palace core. The walls here were dark, the light low. The only sound was the faint scratch of a stylus on a data slate. Empress Seraphine Kale sat at a simple wooden desk, no robes, no guards. She wore a simple gray tunic, her hair unpinned. She looked tired. She looked human. She did not look up when he entered. "The council believes you are a liability, Envoy Hale," she said quietly. "They believe your presence endangers the Empire. They want me to hand you over to the Karth, a gesture of goodwill." "And you?" Noah asked, his voice steady. She looked up. Her eyes were not cold now. They were blazing. "I am not interested in gestures. I am interested in the truth." "You are a linguist. You study patterns. What pattern did you see tonight?" He had to make a choice. The mask of the harmless diplomat, or the truth. "Your Majesty," Noah said, stepping forward. "Your problem is not at the border. It is in this room. The Karth are not coming. They are already here." He laid it out. The echo beacon, the shoes, the laughter, the waveform. She listened, her face impassive. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. The thrum of the palace seemed to fade, leaving only the sound of their breathing. "My ancestors built this palace on the principle of resonance," she said at last, her voice barely a whisper. "That a single, true note could shake a mountain, but a false note, if allowed to resonate, can bring it all to ruin." She stood, walking to a window that overlooked the glowing capital. "They have been stalking us for months, and I have stayed quiet. My council calls it weakness. My people call it fear." "And what do you call it?" Noah asked. She turned to him. "Patience. The Karth hunt by sound, by patterns. To fight them, one must become silent. One must become a new pattern." She walked back to her desk and tapped a control. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a small, dark device. A security key. "The council wants me to expel the human delegation, and so—" "I will," she said. Noah's stomach dropped. "Your Majesty." Publicly, she continued, a flicker of something sharp in her eyes. "Tomorrow, you will be declared persona non grata. You will be confined to your quarters, awaiting transport. A transport that will be, unfortunately, delayed." She pushed the security key across the desk. "This gives you access to the palace's internal sensor network, the old network. The one my ancestors used. The one that logs resonance. Not just video. You will continue your investigation. You will find the false notes in my palace." Noah looked at the key. He looked at her. "You are trusting me, a human. the weakness that invites the predator. I am trusting your observation, Seraphine said. You saw the shoes, my entire security force, my lords, my advisors. They saw only the man. You saw his tools. I need that. Aurelia needs that. She was giving him an incredible, dangerous gift, and a terrible burden. In public, Noah said, picking up the key, its metal, cool against his skin. I am a disgraced diplomat, a pariah, the man who brought the plague. Yes, Seraphine agreed. You will be the target of their scorn, and I will remain the silent, indecisive Empress, the one who lets it happen. A silent empathy passed between them. He, the man who used humor to deflect his own rage and grief. She, the woman who used silence to mask her own strategy. Both of them wearing masks to survive. You will be alone, Envoy Hale, she warned him. Noah pocketed the key. He thought of his family's convoy, dissolving into static. He thought of the laughter of the Aurelian nobles. He thought of Sirac's breathing, pulsing shoes. Majesty, Noah Hale said, the harmless linguist fading. I am a human. I am never alone. I carry ghosts. He gave her a thin, humorless smile. And besides, it is easier to find rats when they think the exterminator has gone home. Noah Hale's disgrace was, in a word, comfortable. His quarters, once merely luxurious, were now a velvet prison. 2 of Seraphine's silver-clad imperial guards stood outside his door, their purpose officially to confine him. But he knew their real function was to keep anyone else out. His public identity had evaporated. He was no longer Envoy Hale. He was the human pariah, the carrier of the Karth plague, the subject of venomous debate in the Aurelian Council. He was also, for the first in his life, dangerously busy. The security key Seraphine had given him was a key to the palace's soul. The old resonance network was not a system of cameras. It was a map of vibrations. The gloss stone pillars that defined Aurelia Prime were not just architecture. They were tuning forks, and the palace was the primary instrument. Every footstep, every whispered conversation, every thrumming biomechanical boot heel sent a signature, a unique chord through the stone. His confinement began with 2 secret visitors, smuggled in through the palace's service corridors by Seraphine's decree. The first was General Hana Ito. She was a small, sharp woman whose placid features belied a mind that moved like a striking viper. She was a scholar of war, a reformer who believed the Aurelian fleet relied too much on tradition and not enough on predictive modeling. The second was Archivist Orlan, the keeper of the Imperial Library. He was an older man, stooped and frail, with eyes that had seen too many data scrolls. He was the Empire's memory, a living index of technologies and treaties long forgotten. They met in Noah's sitting room, the heavy curtains drawn against the persistent, pearlescent light. General. Archivist, Noah said, pouring them a fragrant amber tea. I assume the Empress told you I am not just a very bad diplomat, Hana. Ito did not take the tea. She stood by the window, peering through a crack in the curtain. The Empress told me you saw a weapon where my entire staff saw footwear. This makes you either a genius or a madman. Given the current situation, I find I have little preference. Orlan accepted the cup, his hands trembling slightly. The resonance logs you requested, he whispered, sliding a data slate across the table. From the night of the reception. It is, as you suspected. The pattern is not isolated. Noah brought up the file. The visual representation of Sirac's boot heel was a angry, serrated spiral. He overlaid it with the logs Orlan had brought. "The palace is full of them," he murmured. "Not full," Hanaito corrected him, turning from the window. "Precise. We tracked the biomechanical footprint, as you call it. It is not just Serac. It is his entire 6-person delegation. It is 3 valets in the diplomatic wing. It is 2 members of the groundskeeping staff. And," she paused, her dark eyes locking on his, "it is Lord Valerius's chief aide." Noah felt a cold prickle. Valerius, the loudest voice calling for the expulsion of humans. He is not just a sympathizer. He is a node in their network. "A logistics network," Orlan added, his voice thin. "We cross-reference the movements of these individuals. The valets access food shipments. The groundskeepers have access to the geothermal vents. The aide, he has access to the council's private communication grid. They are not just listening. Envoy. They are preparing the battlefield. They are embedded in your civilian infrastructure. A classic Karth infiltration. They are stalking the palace itself," Noah said. He looked at the network map they had built. The spies formed a web that fed directly, he presumed, to Xerac, and from Xerac to the Dominion. "How do we prove it without revealing we are looking?" "We do not," Hanaito said. "We watch. We learn the shape of their web. And when the time is right, we pull one thread, and we hang them all with it." She gave him a thin, cold smile. "I believe I am going to enjoy working with you." Envoy Hale. His new partners left as silently as they had arrived. Noah was left alone with the hum of the walls and the knowledge that the rot was deeper than he feared. That night, a guard brought him a message. Not a slate. A single, pressed flower from the Lumen Gardens, the Empress's private sanctuary. It was an invitation. He was smuggled out of his prison, not in armor, but in the simple tunic of a palace servant. The Lumen Garden was a paradox. It was on the roof of the highest spire, open to the glowing sky, but the plants were all bioluminescent, thriving in a carefully cultivated darkness. It smelled of damp earth and sweet, alien pollen. Seraphine was standing by a bed of pale blue, bell-shaped flowers that chimed faintly in the recycled breeze. She was in her simple gray tunic again, the one she wore when she was a woman rather than an empress. "You look taller in servant's clothes, envoy," she said, not looking at him. "It is the humility." "Your Majesty," Noah replied, moving to stand beside her. "It adds inches. I hear I am quite the topic of conversation in the council. I hope I am living up to the billing." "They are calling for your head," she said flatly, figuratively. For now, Lord Valerius gave a 2-hour speech on the parasitic nature of the human commonwealth. It was borrowing heavily from Karth propaganda. I am sure his aide wrote him a lovely draft. This made her turn. Her face was illuminated by the chiming flowers, and he could see the exhaustion etched around her eyes. "Hanaito is impressed with you. She does not impress easily. She usually finds diplomats to be decorative. I am just a linguist, Majesty. I am trained to notice when someone is using the wrong words, or, in this case, the wrong shoes." He paused, the garden's soft chimes filling the silence. "You are taking an incredible risk. For me? For my people." "This is not for you," she corrected him, her voice sharp. "This is for Aurelia. The Karth are predators. They do not negotiate. They do not ally. They feed. And the council, in their wisdom, believes that if they feed the wolf a neighbor's child, it will leave their own children alone." She looked back at the flowers. "It is a fool's hope. The wolf will simply return, fatter and stronger, for the main course." "So you stay quiet," Noah said, understanding. You let them call you weak. You let them rage. I am an empress, envoy hail. My duty is not to my pride. It is to my people. My silence is a shield. It gives you time to work. It makes the Karth underestimate me. Let them think I am a frightened girl cowering on a throne. And my jokes, Noah said quietly, are also a shield. They make people underestimate me. They think I am a fool, a lightweight that's not worth taking seriously. Until I am... She met his gaze. The chimes of the flowers seemed to fade. It was a moment of profound, silent connection. Two people, worlds apart, hiding behind the same strategy, deployed in different languages. She used silence to build her fortress. He used words to hide his knives. The problem with shields, she said, her voice soft, is that they get heavy. Then it is a good thing, Noah said, offering a small, sad smile, that we do not have to hold them alone. He left her there in the garden, returning to his velvet cage just before the manufactured dawn. His respect for her had crystallized into something hard and durable. She was not just an empress. She was a warrior, and she was holding the line. The Karth did not wait for Seraphine's 48-hour deadline to expire. They escalated. The stalking had been passive. Now, it became aggressive. The first report was of a freak astronomical event. A rogue comet, the Aurelian News Service called it, had appeared from nowhere and obliterated a mining convoy in the outer asteroid belt. A convoy that was jointly owned by human and Aurelian corporations. Then came a solar flare that just happened to fry the navigation systems of 3 cargo haulers, sending them drifting into a gravity well. All 3 were human-flagged. The confidence static that Noah had seen in his family's logs was being pumped into the galactic network. The Aurelian market, built on the stable glow of the pillars, went into a panic. The stock exchange, a massive, resonating chamber of its own, had to be shut down when the trading floor became a riot. And the narrative, carefully seeded by Lord Valerius and his ilk, took root. The humans are chaos. The humans are a curse. Their presence has broken the harmony. Get rid of the humans, and the bad luck will stop. Noah watched it all from his confinement, a storm of anxiety and rage building in his chest. He was a man of words, and his words were trapped in a single room while the enemy was rewriting the galaxy's entire dictionary. He was monitoring the Commonwealth's encrypted military channels, a habit he had never broken when he saw the flight plan. It was logged under a low-level testing priority, but the signature was high performance. A new model recon interceptor, the Swiftwing. The pilot's name was listed as Jade Monroe. Gideon, Noah said to the air. A small, holographic projector on his desk flickered to life. A simple, blue sphere of light appeared. Gideon was Noah's tactical AI, a violation of at least 4 Commonwealth inter-system treaties. He was also Noah's only true confidant. You are not supposed to activate me on a foreign planet, Noah, Gideon's voice said. It was calm, synthetically reassuring. It violates the try not to get us both executed understanding we have. Pull up Jade Monroe's file, Noah ordered, ignoring the jibe. The file appeared in the air. Jade Monroe, test pilot, human Commonwealth fleet, top of her class. A long list of commendations for bravery. A longer list of reprimands for insubordination. She is not on a test flight. Is she? Noah said. Analysis of her fuel consumption and vector indicates she is heading for the Oscura Gap, the region where the last convoy disappeared, Gideon confirmed. She is a patriot. Noah. Or a fool. The lines are often blurry in your species. She is going hunting, Noah breathed. She is going to get herself killed. As if on cue, the comms in his room, slave to the main palace feed, crackled. A fleet-wide alert. A new priority signal had been detected, near the Oscura Gap. It was the Echo Beacon. Noah watched on a tactical display he should not have. Jade's Swiftwing, a single spark of light, was approaching the gap. And then, from the darkness, the Karth appeared. Not a ship, drones. Hundreds of them. They moved like a fluid, a swarm of metallic insects. "They are tailing her, bracketing her," he said. "She is broadcasting on the emergency channel." Gideon said. The audio feed clicked in. "This is Commonwealth Pilot Monroe." Jade's voice was strained, but steady. "I am engaged by unknowns. Multiple bogies. They are hurting me. I cannot break lock." The drones were not firing. They were just moving, cutting off her escape vectors, forcing her deeper into the gap. It was the swarm algorithm, the one they used to isolate and terrify. "They are playing with her," Noah said, his hands clenched. "Exposing their tactics. She has to get out." "She cannot," Gideon stated. "Her comms are being jammed by the beacon. My analysis indicates the swarm is predictive. It is anticipating her moves based on standard fleet evasion patterns." "Then we cannot use standard patterns," Noah said. His mind was racing. He could not call Hana Ito. This was a human military asset. It would shatter the fragile trust. He could not broadcast a warning. The Karth would hear. He needed a language only Jade would understand. A human language. A language of nonsense. "Gideon," he said, "get me a clear channel to her. Piggyback on the beacon's frequency. I want to override her audio input." "That is technically impossible, Noah." "Do it." "It may corrupt her systems." "Gideon, now." The blue sphere pulsed. "Channel acquired. You have approximately 10 seconds before they trace it back here." Noah leaned into his comm. "Pilot Monroe," he said, his voice a strange, cheerful baritone. "There once was a man from Nantucket. On the bridge of the Swiftwing." Jade Monroe gritted her teeth as a drone sliced past her cockpit. "Damn it! I'm trying to—" Her console flickered. The static jamming her comms was replaced by a man's voice. Whose limerick was so complex, the voice said, he had to fly backward through a hex. "What the hell?" Jade yelled. "Who is this?" "The hex was coordinates 44-8, Noah's voice continued. So he punched the drive. Did not wait. 44-8. It was a navigation point, a tiny, unstable rupture in the gravity well. It was also suicide. But the swarm, it was faster. A total disaster." Noah sang. "So he cut all his thrust, dead weight?" "Cut all thrust." The swarm was predictive. It was expecting her to accelerate away from them. "This is insane," she whispered, but the drones were closing. She had no other options. "Trust me, Jade," Noah's voice said, the cheerfulness gone, replaced by a cold, hard command. "The swarm thinks you are a rabbit. Be a rock." She hit the controls. The Swiftwing's engines died. The interceptor, which had been straining at maximum, went dead in the void. A drifting piece of metal. The Karth swarm, anticipating her next frantic dodge, overshot. The predictive algorithm failed. The entire mass of drones surged past her, suddenly blind, their herding pattern broken. "Now, Jade," Noah's voice was urgent. "Light the candle, Vector 221, and for God's sake, do not fly straight." She slammed the throttle. The engines roared back to life. She did not head for home. She headed for Vector 221, straight into the darkest part of the gap. The swarm recovered, but it was too late. She was through them. She was out. Noah cut the channel. He was shaking. He had just confirmed everything. The swarm was purely predictive. It relied on the prey, acting like prey. His tactical joke, his linguistic chaff, had broken their logic. Jade Monroe's Swiftwing limped back to the last human-held outpost, its sensor logs full of the swarm's algorithm. She was a hero, and Noah Hale was in more trouble than ever. The council exploded. The unauthorized flight of a human test pilot, engaging in aggressive action, was the final straw. Lord Valerius, his face purple with manufactured rage, delivered his ultimatum to Seraphine in an open session. Your Majesty, this farce must end. The humans are not just weak, they are reckless. They endanger us all. We, the nobles of the Aurelian Empire, demand you formally expel the entire human delegation. Send them home. If you do not, we will be forced to open our own negotiations with the Karth Dominion. We will sign our own treaty of peace. We will give them the humans, if that is what it takes. Seraphine sat silent, her face a mask. She said only 2 words. I will. Consider. Noah watched the broadcast from his room. The walls were closing in. The tide was turning. He had saved 1 pilot, but he had just doomed his species. That evening, the final blow came. It was not a political maneuver. It was personal. A data packet arrived, delivered by one of the compromised valets, who no doubt thought he was delivering wine. The packet was anonymous. The packet was for him. He opened it. Gideon's blue light flickered, turning a deep, warning red. Noah, I advise against viewing this data. My analysis shows it is a full, unredacted sensory log from the freighter Hale's Hope. Noah's breath hitched. Hale's Hope, his father's flagship. Play it, he whispered. Noah, this is a psychological weapon. It is the reminder. It is designed to provoke an emotional, irrational response. I said, play it, Gideon. The holographic display lit up. It was not video. It was worse. It was raw data. The sounds from the bridge. The rising panic. The shriek of the echo beacon. The same one he had heard in the plaza. The sudden, sickening silence as the life support was ripped away. The last, fading telemetry of the escape pods as the Karth swarm had dismantled them. He watched it all. He listened to it all. He did not blink. When it was over, the room was silent. Gideon's light had returned to a soft, worried blue. Noah Hale stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the glowing, beautiful alien city that had imprisoned him. He felt nothing, not sadness, not grief. The shields were down. The jokes were gone. All that was left was a cold, pure, diamond-hard rage. His family had been slaughtered, and the galaxy was letting it happen. The Aurelians were going to trade them away. The Karth were laughing. The motor of revenge, he said, his voice a rasp. It is online. Noah, Gideon said softly. That is what they want. I know, Noah said, and I am going to give it to them. But I am not going to give it to them for free. A chime at his door. A guard. The Empress summons you. To the Vault of Echoes. The Vault of Echoes was not a room. It was a chasm. It was beneath the palace, deep in the planet's crust. The walls were the natural, unpolished gloss stone, and they were carved with millennia of history. The air was cold. The only light came from the stone itself. A faint, primordial glow. Seraphine was waiting for him. She was standing before a massive, dark carving that depicted a fleet of ships, sleek and Aurelian, kneeling before a fleet of jagged, shadowy vessels. She knew, Noah realized. She knew they would send me that file. "A 1,000 years," Seraphine said, her voice echoing in the vast, cold space. 1,000 years ago, that is what this depicts. She pointed to the kneeling ships. My ancestors, the first to harness the resonance, they were so proud. They thought their song was the most powerful in the galaxy. Then she pointed to the shadowy ships. The Karth. They came, not with weapons, but with praise. They loved the resonance. They encouraged it. They farmed us. Envoy. They taught us to refine our songs, to build our pillars, to make our resonance stronger, purer. They made us fatter. She ran her hand along the carving. And when the song was perfect, when we had achieved a harmony that could shatter moons, they returned to harvest, to slaughter us and take the pillars for themselves. She turned to him, her eyes burning in the dim light. We fought. We broke our pillars. We destroyed our own songs. We cast our planet into silence, a silence so profound it poisoned the Karth's senses. We drove them back, not with strength, but with the absence of it. We survived. Barely. She stepped closer to him. He could feel the cold radiating from her. I will not be farmed, Envoy Hale. I will not be the Empress who let the Karth fatten her people for a second slaughter. I will not let history repeat itself. I will break this empire into dust before I let them feed. Noah looked at the carving. He looked at her. His own cold rage met her ancient, icy resolve. The ghost of his family met the ghosts of her ancestors. They sent me the logs, he said. I know. They think it will break me, make me reckless. And will it? She asked. Noah looked at his hands. He felt the phantom vibration of his father's ship. No, it will make me precise. He turned from the carving. They want a response. They want a human ship to hunt. They are stalking, waiting for the scent. Let us give it to them. A bait trap, Seraphine said. A fake convoy, Noah said, his mind already working. My credentials, my real ones, can access the Commonwealth's deep network. I can build a ghost fleet. We will broadcast a signal, a scent profile, of a high value, low defense human transport. Something the Karth, something Zarak, cannot possibly resist. They will be cautious, she warned. They will, Noah agreed. Which is why we have to make it perfect. But I am not just going to build a trap. He looked back at the Empress, the man who had been a linguist now fully gone, replaced by something else, something harder. I am a soundwall architect, Majesty. My job was to build predictive models of their tactics, and I am going to load that ghost fleet with a data layer. A very strange, very personal layer, a language they will be drawn to, a language only they understand. And, he thought to himself, a layer of data they will never see coming. A layer only he could read. Good, Sarah's voice echoed in the chasm. You build your trap, architect, and I will continue to be silent. The trap was set. From the confines of his comfortable prison, Noah Hale, the disgraced envoy, became the galaxy's most prolific and completely fictional shipping magnate. With Gideon's help, he built a phantom fleet. He created manifests, logs, and supply chains out of pure data, all of them converging on a single, tempting route. He did not just mimic a high-value convoy. He mimicked a desperate one. He layered the ghost signals with the specific resonance of high-grade fuels, rare medical isotopes, and, most importantly, the digital scent of human panic. He used algorithms derived from the Hale's Hope Log, twisting his own family's digital ghosts into a lure. It was a cold, soul-numbing process. He was using his father's death as bait. The lure is in the water, he announced to the empty room. Gideon's blue sphere pulsed on the desk. They are sniffing. Noah, the AI reported. Multiple long-range Karth sensor pings. They are assessing the scent profile. They are interested. Let them look, Noah said, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Let them get hungry. They did not wait long. The Karth fleet, a swarm of dark, jagged shadows, emerged from void space precisely where Noah's models predicted. They did not attack at once. They began the hunt. They stalked the phantom convoy, herding it, cutting it off, just as they had done to Jade Monroe. But this time, the prey was not real, and the hunter was being recorded. Look at that, Noah breathed, as the Karth ships executed a circling hunt maneuver. They were slicing the convoy into manageable pieces, isolating ships one by one, a tactic of overwhelming psychological terror. Gideon, Noah commanded, his voice cold. Record every maneuver, every engine fluctuation, every frequency they use to communicate. I want the full scent profile. I want to know how they breathe. Recording, Noah, Gideon said. Their biological intercoms are running hot. They are excited. They believe the prey is rich and weak. Good, Noah said. Let them enjoy the meal. For 3 hours, the Karth tore apart a convoy of ghosts. Their every move, every signal, every predatory instinct captured and cataloged by Noah. He now had the key to their biological sensory system. He had their language. He could, with this data, forge a signal that would make them tear each other to pieces. The urge to use it was a physical burn in his chest. To break the scent and burn the swarm. Right now. To send that data log to the Commonwealth fleet and unleash a war of annihilation. It would be justice. It would be revenge. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. He thought of Seraphine. He thought of her ancestors carving in the vault of echoes. We drove them back, not with strength, but with the absence of it. He closed his eyes. The revenge would wait. To strike now would expose his hand, expose her hand, and doom them both. This was not about his rage. It was about her plan. Gideon, he said, his voice tight. Encrypt the scent profile. Lock it. Tri-key authentication, mine, yours, and one other, unassigned. Noah, the data is actionable. We could end this. No, Noah said, standing. We are not ending it. We are winning it. And this is not how we win. This is just how we fight. He logged the file, but the blood debt list in his head grew longer, and Zirak's name was at the very top. While Noah was building his trap, Empress Seraphine Kale was building hers. Publicly. She was a leader in collapse. She missed council meetings. She delegated trivial, critical decisions to her aides. She was seen, once, walking in the Lumen Gardens. Her expression not one of peace, but of profound, vacant detachment. The narrative in the court was set. The Empress was broken. The human problem, the Karth threat. It had shattered her. Lord Valerius was in ecstasy. He was the de facto ruler of the Empire. His voice the only one that mattered in the council. The weakling leader had ceded the throne in all but name. But in the deep palace, in the ancient, unused corridors, Seraphine was not idle. She had resurrected a dead art. With Archivist Orlan, she was overseeing the construction of reflection shrines. They were not weapons. They were architectural counterintelligence. Aurelian history taught that the gloss stone pillars that formed the planet were resonance amplifiers. The Karth used that resonance to hunt Seraphine, using blueprints from the last Karth War. The one from 1,000 years ago was installing acoustic mirrors. chambers of dead stone, and resonance baffles throughout the palace and, secretly, in key orbital installations. They were designed to do one thing: catch the Karth's echo beacon and reflect it back. Not as an echo, but as a deafening, blinding, solid wall of sound. It was an anti-stalking defense system, built of stone, mathematics, and memory. And it required her full attention. She accepted the whispers of weakling as the price for her people's survival. Every day she spent as a weakling was another day her engineers had to build. The Karth, confident in their position, decided to escalate. Overseer Zarak, the man with the breathing shoes, no longer bothered with proxies. He sent a private, encrypted message directly to Seraphine's personal terminal. It was an ultimatum. Noah was with her, in her dark study. When she received it, he was now her shadow, the ghost in her machine. Zarak's gaunt, arrogant face filled the screen. He was not on a ship. He was in a plush, opulent room, clearly on Aurelia Prime. He was that confident. "Your Imperial Majesty," he rasped, the sound of his voice like a recording of a snake. "You have been quiet. I admire that. Silence is a sign of contemplation. I am sure you have been contemplating the futility of your position." Seraphine just watched him, her face a perfect, placid mask. "The Dominion is not without mercy," Zarak continued, steepling his long fingers. "We do not wish to see this beautiful, resonant world fall into dissonance. We are prepared to offer you peace, a guarantee that our fleets will hunt elsewhere." "The price?" Seraphine asked, her voice a flat, dead tone. Zarak smiled. It was a predator's smile, all gums and teeth. "A small architectural concession. Your ancestors built this world around the three great Athenor pillars. The core pillars. The ones that channel the planet's geothermal energy. They are beautiful. And they are the source of the resonance we find so appealing." He leaned in. "Hand them over, Your Majesty. Cede control of the three Athenor Gloss, stone pillars to the Dominion. A simple transfer of energy rights. In exchange, we will cease all hunting in your territory. And," he added, as a cruel afterthought, "we will even take the human problem off your hands. Permanently." He was asking for her planet's heart. He was asking her to perform the harvest herself. Noah watched Seraphine. He saw her knuckles whiten on the desk. He saw the pulse beat in her throat. "I will," she said, her voice a whisper. "Consider your offer." Zarak's smile widened. He had her. The weak Empress was ready to break. "You have 24 hours. Majesty, after that, the hunt becomes much less discriminate." The transmission ended. Seraphine stood, walked to the window, and put her forehead against the cool, dark stone. She did not speak for a full minute. "He is offering me," she said, "the chance to gut my own people, in exchange for a quiet death." "He believes you are weak," Noah said, his voice hard. "He believes you are alone. He is wrong, on both counts." She turned, her eyes not defeated, but burning with a cold, ancient fire. "He is on-world. He is in my city, and he is giving me 24 hours. Then we have 24 hours, Noah replied, to change the board. That night, the palace hosted another farce. A unity banquet, organized by Lord Valerius, to reaffirm Aurelian solidarity in the face of the crisis. It was, in fact, a celebration, a pre-victory party for the pro-Karth faction. Noah, still officially a prisoner, was not invited. But his disguise as a palace servant had become depressingly familiar. He was serving chilled wine, his face impassive, his ears wide open. He saw him. A wealthy Aurelian merchant named Kalen, a man whose shipping lines had, miraculously, seen a 20% increase in profits since the astronomical accidents began. He was thick with Lord Valerius, and he was currently laughing with a minor Karth attaché. Noah saw his moment. He moved through the crowd, his wine tray held steady. He stumbled, just slightly, near Kalen's chair. "My apologies, my lord," Noah murmured, bowing his head, keeping his face in shadow. Kalen, drunk on wine and arrogance, waved him off. "Be more careful. You clumsy—" "Wait." He squinted at Noah. "Do I know you?" Noah looked up, his face a mask of harmless servitude. He looked down at Kalen's feet. The merchant was wearing expensive, polished synth leather boots. Noah gave him a small, conspiratorial smile. "I just had to say, my lord, nice shoes." Kalen blinked. He looked at his own shoes, confused. "What? Yes. I suppose they are." But Noah was already gone, melting back into the crowd of servants. In his ear, a tiny, undetectable comms unit. A human device Seraphine had procured for him, chirped. "Noah," Gideon's voice said. That was a non-standard interaction. The phrase "nice shoes," when directed at a non-Karth target, has no logical matrix. "It does now, Gideon," Noah whispered, as he poured wine for a furious-looking duchess. "That was the key. Unlock the St. Elmo protocol. The one I filed under linguistic humor, theoretical. Unlocking... Noah, this protocol is a triple blind encryption wrapper. It is designed to hide a secondary data stream inside a primary, public broadcast. What are you planning to broadcast? Patience, Gideon, Noah said. You will know when I do. He had just armed his AI. He had just turned a joke into a key. And Kalen, the pro-Karth merchant, was now the unwitting trigger. Gideon systems would now be slaved to Kalen's public comm signature, waiting for the right moment. The plan was in motion. Seraphine needed a diversion. She needed to test her new weapon. And she needed to prove to the remaining loyalists that the Karth could be blinded. Jade Monroe, the pilot who had been saved by a limerick, was the only choice. She was smuggled onto Aurelia Prime and brought to the dark study. She walked in, saw Noah, and her jaw dropped. "You," she said, "the man from Nantucket." "In the flesh," Noah said with a tired smile. "Pilot Monroe, meet Empress Seraphine. We have a job for you. We need you to go be a rabbit again." Jade looked at Seraphine, then back at Noah. "I am not a rabbit, I am a test pilot, and I do not take orders from men in servants' tunics." "This is not an order," Seraphine said, her voice cutting through the tension. "It is a request. I am building a shield. The Karth are building a cage. We need to know if my shield works. We need a lure to draw them into the Oscura Gap." "The Oscura Gap," Jade said, her eyes widening. "That is where they got me last time. It is a drone swarm playground." "Exactly," Noah said. "And this time, they will be expecting you. You will lead a small squadron, 3 ships. You will fly the exact scent profile of a panicked survivor. You will run. You will cry for help, and you will lead them to a very specific set of coordinates in the gap." "Coordinates where what?" Jade asked, suspicious. "Where I have been busy," Seraphine said. "Where my ancestors left us a gift." 2 hours later, Jade was in the cockpit of a new Swiftwing. Flanked by 2 Aurelian pilots, Hana Ito had handpicked for their loyalty and their nerve. They broadcast a leaked escape plan, a human envoy supposedly trying to run the blockade. The Karth took the bait so fast it was almost comical. A full swarm, 200 strong, emerged from the darkness of the Oscura Gap. the shriek of their echo beacons filling the comms. "Here they come!" Jade yelled, banking her ship hard. "Just like you said, they are hurting us." "Stay on course, pilot," Noah's voice said in her ear, a calm anchor in the storm. "Bring them deep." "Deeper and I will be scraping paint off a black hole," she retorted, but she held the course. The Karth swarm, led by the echo beacons, tightened the noose. They were in the blackest part of the gap, a sector known for its unusual architecture. It was where Seraphine, using Orlan's ancient star charts, had focused her work. "Empress," Noah said into his comm, "the rabbits are in the snare." In her study, Seraphine watched the tactical display. The red dots of the Karth swarm were now perfectly aligned. She placed her hand on a large, cool stone embedded in her desk. "Now," she whispered. In the Oscura gap, the network of reflection shrines came alive. The reflection shrines, hidden in asteroids and ancient orbital debris, caught the Karth's echo beacon and threw it back. For the Karth swarm, it was as if the universe had suddenly turned into a hall of mirrors, their own hunting shriek. The one they used to blind and disorient was amplified 1,000 times and blasted back at them from every direction. Their predictive algorithms, their swarm mind, drowned in its own noise. The swarm went blind. "What in the—" Jade watched, stunned. As the 200 drones abruptly stopped, they began to drift, crashing into each other, their synchronized movements reduced to a chaotic, idiotic mess. "Pilot Monroe." Seraphine's voice came over the comm, cold and clear as ice. "You have a few precious minutes. I suggest you use them." Jade did not need to be told twice. Her 3-ship squadron flew straight through the heart of the disoriented, self-destructing swarm, and did not look back. The test was a success. Seraphine's shield worked, but it was not enough. When the news of the failed Karth attack reached the palace, it did not have the effect Seraphine hoped. The drones had been blinded, yes, but they were still there. The threat remained. Lord Valerius seized the moment. He called an emergency session of the council. This time, he was not just making speeches. He was making a move. "This cannot stand," he roared, his voice echoing in the chamber. The Empress, our silent, absent Empress, plays games with drones while our economy collapses. She provokes the Dominion with these pinpricks. She is not just weak. She is mad. Lord Valerius, call for a vote of no confidence in the Empress. Seraphine Kale. The chamber erupted. This was unprecedented. It was a political rebellion. "The vote will be held in 12 hours, Valerius shouted over the din. "And when she is removed, we will open the gates. We will contact Overseer Tserak, and we will offer him the peace that she was too proud, too foolish to accept. We will trade peace and stability for this human-led chaos." Noah watched the broadcast in Seraphine's study. The timer had run out. Tserak's ultimatum was being answered, not by the Empress, but by her own council. The door opened. A guard stood there. "The Empress requests your presence. Envoy, hail." In the Hall of Oaths. The Hall of Oaths was the oldest part of the palace. It was a single, vast room, its walls lined with the names of every Aurelian who had ever died in service to the Empire. There was no light, save for the faint glow of the names themselves. It smelled of dust, stone, and time. Seraphine was standing in the center of the room, her back to him. "They are going to depose me." "Noah," she said, her voice flat. It did not echo. The room seemed to drink the sound. "They are going to try," he said. She turned. Her face was pale, but But she was not crying. She was clear. All the fatigue, all the masks had fallen away. She was just Seraphine. "I have one last move," she said. A protocol of my own. It is dangerous. It will expose everything. Your role as an architect, my reflection shrines, all of it. It will force a civil war, here, now, in the palace." She stepped closer. "But it is the only way to stop them from handing the keys to Tserak. It will save the Empire, but it will require a sacrifice to make it work. I must use the Athenor pillars as a global broadcast system, and to do that, I must lock them down. For the network to stabilize, all non-essential systems must be shut down. Including," she took a breath, "the life support systems in the civilian sectors. The ones that are not shielded." He stared at her. "What?" "It would only be for a few minutes," she said, her voice a desperate rasp. 5, 10 at most. But thousands would die. Civilians. My people. They would suffocate in their homes, so that I could save the Empire." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. "The needs of the many, Noah. Is it not what all leaders must decide? I can save my civilization if I am willing to sacrifice my people." Noah looked at the millions of glowing names on the wall. The ghosts. His own ghosts rose up to meet them. His father. His crew. "Tell me, Noah," she whispered, her voice breaking for the first time. "I have this secret, this terrible final secret, and I have my people. If you must choose between saving the people and keeping the secret, which do you choose?" She was asking for permission. She was asking for absolution. Noah looked at her, at this woman who had carried the weight of an empire, who had worn the mask of a fool, who had borne the insults of her own court, all to get to this one terrible moment. He did not give her absolution. He gave her the truth. "You do not," he said. His voice was soft, but it filled the hall. "You do not choose. You are asking the wrong question. What? You do not sacrifice the people to save the secret. You use the secret to save the people. Always. You do not shut down their life support. You trust them. You tell them the truth. You tell them what Valerius is. You tell them what Zerak is. You tell them who you are. You have been silent for so long. Seraphine, it is time for you to sing." He stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth from her skin. "They think you are weak. Show them your strength, but not the strength of a tyrant who sacrifices her citizens. Show them the strength of a leader who trusts them to fight with her. You do not need to lock down the pillars. You need to unleash them, not as a weapon, as a voice." He saw the conflict in her eyes, the warring of 1,000 years of tradition against this one, insane human idea. "What if they panic?" she whispered. "What if they join Valerius?" Noah allowed himself a small, genuine smile. "Then they panic. But you will have told them the truth, and I will still joke, even then." "Do you know why?" She shook her head. "Because frightened people need a reason to breathe," he said. "Give them a reason, Seraphine. Give them you." A single tear tracked down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. It was a testament to the moment. The trust between them was no longer silent. It was spoken. It was forged. "They will call for the vote in 12 hours, she said, her voice steel again. "Valerius will make his move. Zerak will be waiting, and they will all be in one place." "The council chamber," Noah said. "A public broadcast." "Yes," she said. A new, dangerous light was in her eyes. "A banquet, a feast. Lord Valerius loves his parties." A slow smile spread across Noah's face. A banquet. I like that. It is so civilized. Go, architect, she said. Go back to your cage, work with Gideon, get your St. Elmo protocol ready. And you? He asked. Seraphine Kale looked at the names of her dead, and for the first time, she smiled. She said, am going to send out some invitations. It is time for a table-flipping party. The morning of the vote of no confidence began with a scream. Not a human one, but the sound of an entire trade route dying. A full-scale hunt had been launched by the Karth Dominion. This was not a test. This was not a probe. It was a harvesting. The central trade route, the artery that fed both the Aurelian Empire and the human Commonwealth, was being systematically dismantled. Live feeds, before they were cut, showed dozens of freighters being herded, disabled, and then vanishing. The news hit the Aurelian Council like a physical blow. Lord Valerius, arriving for his moment of triumph, was galvanized. This is the end, he broadcast from the steps of the council chamber, his voice ringing with false sorrow and real ambition. The humans have fled. Reports from the border confirm their fleet has withdrawn in terror. They have abandoned us, and the Empress, in her madness, has led us to this ruin. The fake news was a masterpiece. It was perfectly timed, perfectly pitched. The city, which had been on a knife edge of panic, began to tip. There were riots in the lower sectors. The gloss stone pillars seemed to weep in the pearlescent light. Overseer Tserak and his delegation were, of course, moved to the safety of the palace's inner sanctum, guarded by Valerius's own men. Then, at the height of the panic, the Empress spoke. Her message was not broadcast to the council, but to the entire planet. Her face appeared on every screen, in every home. She was in the Hall of Oaths, the glowing names of the dead her only backdrop. She looked pale. She looked small. My people, she said, her voice not strong, but a simple yet clear statement. Lord Valerius is correct about one thing. This is a day of endings, and it is a day of new beginnings. The Karth Dominion has offered us peace. A peace our human allies, in their haste, have apparently rejected. She paused, and the entire planet held its breath. In 1 hour, the council will vote, and I will honor their decision, whatever it may be. But tonight, to show the Dominion that Aurelia is not a world of chaos, but one of civility, I have invited Overseer Tserak to a peace banquet, a final. She seemed to search for the word. A party to laugh, one last time. The palace will be open. We will show the galaxy what true strength looks like. We will feast. It was the single most insane, breathtaking act of surrender anyone had ever witnessed. Valerius was stunned, then ecstatic. Tserak, from his safe room, gave a slow, reptilian smile. The weak Empress was not just abdicating. She was holding the door open for him. She was, quite literally, setting the table for his victory. As the twin suns set, the planet's light drinking pillars exhaled their stored energy. But tonight, Seraphine had activated the Night Feast protocol. The light was not the usual soft, pearlescent glow. It was a hard, brilliant, crystal white light. Every surface of the city, every gloss stone pillar, every polished plaza, became a resonant, amplifying mirror. The city was not just illuminated, it was tuned. The great hall of the palace was a vision. The air was thick with the scent of exotic pollens and fragrant, smoking incense burners. The tables were laden with food and drink. The lords and ladies of the Aurelian Empire, the ones who had not yet fled, were there in their finest, their faces masks of forced gaiety and raw fear. At the high table, Seraphine sat on her simple stone throne, dressed in a robe of pure, stark white. To her left, Overseer Tzerak, magnificent in his dark, predatory robes, his breathing shoes seeming to pulse with quiet satisfaction. To his side, Lord Valerius, his face flushed with triumph. And to Seraphine's right, in a move that had shocked the entire court, sat Envoy Noah Hale. He was clean-shaven, his hair immaculate, and he was back in his formal Commonwealth diplomatic tunic. He looked calm. He looked rested. He looked, to the horror of Valerius, like a man who had been invited. "A bold move, Your Majesty," Tzerak rasped, his voice a low thrum that carried over the nervous music. "To bring the liability to the table. Is he the main course?" Valerius laughed, a high, nervous bray. "The envoy is here as an observer, overseer," Seraphine said, her voice a calm, musical note in the tense room. "He is here to witness the strength of Aurelian diplomacy." "Indeed," Tzerak said. "Let him watch." The banquet was agonizing. Course after course was served. Wine flowed. Valerius and his faction made speeches, their voices dripping with praise for Tzerak, for a new era of peace, for pragmatic solutions. They were voting, one by one, to condemn the humans and welcome the Karth. Finally, as the last course was cleared, Seraphine stood. A hush fell over the hall. "Lords and ladies of Aurelia," she said. "Overseer Tzerak, you have spoken with great wisdom. The vote is clear. This alliance is over." A ragged cheer went up from Valerius's table. Tzerak inclined his head, a king accepting tribute. "The hour is late," Seraphine continued, "and we have but one piece of business left. Our former ally, Envoy Hale, has requested one final word, a diplomatic courtesy. We, as Aurelians, are nothing if not courteous." She nodded to Noah. Noah stood. He was just a man, in a simple gray tunic, surrounded by victorious predators and armored traitors. Every eye was on him. The live broadcast, which Seraphine had insisted upon, was carrying his image to the entire waiting planet. He walked to the center of the dais. He did not look at the lords. He did not look at Seraphine. He looked directly, with a strange, academic interest, at Overseer Tzerak. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Noah said, his voice easy, conversational. "This has been an education. As a linguist, I have always believed that diplomacy is the art of finding a shared language, a common ground, a sign of mutual appreciation." He smiled. It was that same harmless, self-deprecating smile he had used at the first reception. "And as I look out tonight," he continued, his gaze drifting down, past the politics, past the misunderstandings, I find myself drawn to the one undeniable truth of this entire affair, the one thing we can all agree on. He looked directly at Tzerak. His smile widened. "Overseer," Noah Hale said, his voice ringing with pure, unadulterated sincerity. "Nice shoes." A beat of absolute, stunned silence. Then, Lord Valerius, confused but eager to mock the human, barked a laugh. Tzerak, after a moment, let out his own dry, rasping chuckle. He was arrogant. He was victorious. He could afford to accept the fawning, idiotic compliment of his defeated foe. The entire hall, following his lead, erupted in laughter. It was a wave of relief, of mockery, of pure, high-stakes tension breaking. The air pressure in the room had just reversed. And in that precise instant, Noah Hale pressed a small, hidden transmitter in his palm. The laughter was the trigger phrase Gideon had been waiting for. Deep in the palace, in his hidden server, Gideon's blue sphere pulsed. The St. Elmo protocol, the one hidden inside the linguistic joke, was active. The scent scrambler did not come as a sound. It came as a scent. The fragrant, smoking incense burners, placed all around the hall, did not change their smell. But for any being with Karth-level senses, the air suddenly became a screaming, chaotic noise. The pheromonal acoustic language the Karth used to communicate, the one they used to coordinate, was instantly, deafeningly jammed. It was, to them, as if every person in the room had begun to shriek in their most private language. Zarak's chuckle died in his throat. He choked, a sudden, violent gasp. His eyes, flat and cold, widened in confusion, then in pain. He looked at his delegation. They were clawing at their own necks, disoriented. The scent was gone. The sound was gone. They were disoriented. And then the second wave hit. Across the hall, the laughter of the Aurelian traitors died. Lord Valerius's chief aide, the man who had written the propaganda, suddenly cried out. He looked down at his own feet, his elegant, formal boots, in horror. The biomechanical shoes worn by every Karth agent, every collaborator, every spy in the room, were malfunctioning, robbed of their network signal. They had defaulted to their primary protocol, find a new connection, all at once. The hidden, living technology in their footwear unfurled, sending out desperate, visible fine-channel pings. Chitinous plates on Kalen's boots snapped open. Wires of living tissue slithered from the aide's heels, trying to burrow into the stone floor. They were exposed. "My Lord Valerius," Noah said, his voice cutting through the new, horrified silence. "It seems your aide is having a wardrobe malfunction." At that exact moment, in orbit, the second plan synchronized. General Hana Ito, in a pressure suit, slammed her fist into a junction box on the main orbital platform. Now, Jade Monroe, at the helm of a captured Karth drone, did not hesitate. She fired a precision pulse charge, not at the station, but at the main command key, locking down the comms array. "Key broken," she yelled. "The orbital dock is ours. General, you are live." "Hana," Ito smiled, a cold, thin smile. "Gideon, you have the stage." Back in the palace, a new sound began. It was not a shriek. It was a chord, a deep, subsonic vibration that rattled the wine glasses and shook the stones. Gideon was broadcasting, not a scent, but a swarm-repelling frequency, the one derived from Seraphine's reflection shrines. It was the sound of a predator, not a prey sphere. For the Karth, it was the sound of a predator bigger than them. It was the sound of absence. Zarak roared, jam it now!" But his aides were deaf, blind, and dumb. The Karth chain of command was cut. Gideon's voice, calm and synthetic, suddenly boomed through the hall speakers. "Command severance successful. The 90-second window is open. Noah, the presentation is yours." The massive screens in the hall, the ones that had been showing the burning trade routes, flickered. They now showed Noah's face, live from a small camera drone that had detached from his belt. "Thank you, Gideon," Noah said, turning to the stunned, frozen audience. He was no longer the diplomat. He was the architect. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," he announced, his voice booming with amplified power. "Welcome to the table flip. For many months, you have been told that you are being hunted by the Karth." The screen behind him split. On one side, the Karth fleet. On the other, a calendar, dates, times, incidents. "You have not been hunted," Noah declared. "You have been stalked, studied, manipulated. You have been drained, not just of your ships, but of your courage." The screen changed. A new list appeared, a list. A list, Noah said, his voice dropping, of collaborating nobles. Men and women who sold their world for profit and power. Men and women who are in this room tonight. The camera drone he was controlling swept the room, its bright red targeting light leading the way. It passed over a stunned, pale duchess. It passed over a sweating banker. It settled, finally, on Lord Valerius, whose face was a mask of white, stunned terror. And now, Noah said. A live demonstration, he pointed. Lord Kalen, the shipping merchant. How are your shoes? Kalen screamed as the biotech on his feet, in its final, desperate attempt to connect, fused to the floor in a shower of sparks. The hall erupted. This was not a trial. It was a vivisection. Through it all, Seraphine Kale had not moved. She had watched, silent, as her plan and Noah's plan had converged. Now, she stood. She was no longer the weak, silent girl. She was the Empress. She was the storm. General Ito, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a diamond. You have the list. Arrest them all. And do not, she added, her voice dropping to a cold, clear whisper. Trouble them to change. Their evening wear is perfectly appropriate. Silver-clad Imperial Guards, Hana-Ito's loyalists, flooded the hall, not from the main doors, but from hidden panels in the walls. They had been waiting. They moved with precise, brutal efficiency, seizing the named traitors. Zerak, his face a mask of pure, primal rage, saw his plan, his victory, his entire network, dissolving in seconds. He was a predator. And a cornered predator has only one move. He threw his head back and activated his final, desperate command. It was not a word. It was a madness instinct. A madness instinct. A subsonic shriek from his own lungs that bypassed all technology. It was a single order to his delegation, and to the living weapons on the traitors. Massacre. The Karth delegation, their bodies twisting, lunged. The biomechanical shoes on the traitors exploded, not with signals, but with blades, toxins, and plasma charges. They were going to massacre them in the palace and bring the ceiling down on everyone. But Seraphine had one last card. Now, Majesty, Noah yelled. She did not move. She simply closed her eyes. The reflection shrines that she had built, the ones tested in the Oscura Gap, were not just external. The entire palace was one. As Zerak lunged for her throat, an active defense mode engaged. A wall of pure, solid sound slammed into him. It was not a noise. It was a force deflection. The sound. The light and the resonance of the palace itself. The light scent sound. Formed a visible, shimmering cage around the high table. Zerak's plasma blast hit the wall and was contained, bent back, and dissipated into harmless light. The traitor's blades shattered against an invisible barrier. The banquet night had become a battlefield, and the palace itself had chosen a side. The hall was a symphony of chaos. The loyal guards were dragging the screaming, exposed traitors. The Karth delegation was trapped in a shimmering cage of their own reflected rage, beating against a wall of sound. Noah moved, his heart hammering, to stand beside Seraphine. She was pale, shaking from the exertion, but she was upright. The palace is holding, she said, her voice a gasp. The palace is holding, Noah agreed. But Zerak just sent a signal to his fleet. The real swarm, the mother swarm, on the main screens, the burning trade route vanished, replaced by a terrifying, new tactical display from orbit. A red cloud, vast and angry, was descending on Aurelia Prime. The first battle was over. The party was done. Noah looked at the Empress. She was the target. She was the key. He reached out, not in comfort, but in command. He took her hand. She did not pull away. She grasped his, her grip like steel. He felt it. She felt it. The echo sign. The thrumming, resonant heartbeat of the planet, of the palace, of the pillars. Their heartbeats, for one insane second, matched it. They were co-commanders. "Nice party, Majesty," Noah Hale said, his eyes on the descending red cloud. "The night is young, Architect," Seraphine Kell replied. "Do not waste your breath. We are going to need it." The tactical screen in the banquet hall was no longer a feed. It had become a living map of celestial horror. The red cloud descending on Aurelia Prime was not a fleet of ships. It was an entity. The Crown Swarm. The sentient Mother Swarm. It was a collective intelligence that was actively rewriting the planetary defenses, turning the very orbit into a virtual nest. It was not here to conquer. It was here to swallow. From within his shimmering cage of sound, Overseer Tsarak, his face pressed against the invisible barrier, laughed. It was the same dry, rasping sound from the first reception, but now it was filled with ecstatic, religious fury. "Fools!" he shrieked, his voice distorted by the sound shield. "You have flipped the table, only to find the ground beneath is gone. You cannot fight the nest. The mother swarm has come. She will unmake this world. She will swallow you all." Noah Hale, his hands still locked with Seraphine's, felt the echo sign, the planet's thrumming heartbeat quicken in terror. The stones themselves were afraid. He ignored Zirak. He ignored the guards dragging the last of the traitors from the hall. He looked at Seraphine. The co-command was over. It was time for the architect to go to work. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice low and urgent, his grip pulling her from the dais. "Your palace is a fortress, but it is not the wall we need. It is the anchor." "Anchor," she was breathing hard, her eyes still on the terrifying red cloud on the screen. "I am not a linguist," he said, pulling her toward the main command console, the one that interfaced with the Athenar pillars. "I am not an envoy. My name is Noah Hale, and I am the Soundwall architect for the human commonwealth. My entire life has been dedicated to sound-sent field warfare." He sat at the console, and the interface, which had been Aurelian, flickered, recognized his palm print, and reconfigured into a complex, holographic mesh of human design. What is that?" Seraphine whispered. "This," Noah said, his fingers flying, "is the probability mesh. It is the Commonwealth's darkest secret. It is a weapon designed to fight swarms. To fight this," he pointed to the Crown Swarm. "We hid it. We hid the craft. To keep the peace. To avoid provoking an arms race we knew no one could win. It is not a weapon of force. It is a net of logic, of if-then probabilities, designed to suppress the swarm." "Then use it," she urged. "Unleash it." "I am not all-powerful," he said, his voice tight. "It has a flaw. It is not omnipotent. It is not a cold machine, Seraphine. A probability mesh, to be stable, to hold against a sentient, chaotic force like the Crown Swarm. It needs an emotional anchor, a pure, resonant, unwavering frequency to serve as its nucleus." He looked up from the console, his eyes meeting hers. The playful, self-deprecating envoy was gone. This was a man holding the world's last desperate match. "I need your oath, Empress," he said. "The silent oath you spoke of in the vault, the promise you made to your ancestors. I need to broadcast it, not as a secret, but as a shield. The Crown Swarm is feeding on the planet's fear. I need you to feed them. Resolve." He pointed to the screen. If community trust holds, the net holds. If it breaks, the wall collapses, and we are all swallowed. Seraphine looked at the console. She looked at the door. She understood. The battle was not in orbit. It was in the hearts of her people. She did not run. She walked, with a calm, terrifying purpose, out of the banquet hall. General Hana Ito, her face grim, met her at the door. Majesty, the city is in total panic. My forces are being overwhelmed. Defending the city is becoming impossible. You will not defend them, General, Seraphine said, her voice clear and carrying. You will unbar the doors. Get me to the Umbral Plaza. Now. The Umbral Plaza, the site of the first humiliation, was a sea of raw, human and Aurelian panic. The sky was bleeding red from the swarm's orbital nest. People were screaming, running, dying in stampedes. Seraphine Kale walked onto the central dais, the same one where she had been silenced. She did not take a weapon. She did not bring a guard. Hana Ito and her men formed a desperate perimeter. But the Empress was exposed. She activated the planetary broadcast. Her face, pale and resolute, appeared on every screen, on every pillar. She did not shout. She did not plead. She transmitted. The silent oath. She whispered. My people. Her voice was a whispered chorus that cut through the noise. I am here. I am Seraphine Kale. I will not run. I will not hide. I am not silent in fear. I am resonant with you. We are the stone. We are the light. We are Aurelia. Hold your ground. It was not a speech. It was a defensive chord. The human stone resonance began. In the streets, the panic did not stop. It changed. The screaming became a low, defiant murmur. People, huddled in their homes, looked at the pillars, and they began to whisper with her. We are the stone. We are the light. The entire planet, a billion voices, became a single, whispered note of defiance. Back in the palace, Noah Hale felt it, the probability mesh, which had been a chaotic, flickering web, snapped taut. It glowed a solid, brilliant gold. The nucleus is stable, he breathed, a tear of pure, agonizing relief tracing a line through the grime on his face. He slammed his hand on the comm. Jade, it is time to run. Get your lure squadron. In the air. The rabbit hole is open. About damn time, Architect. Jade Monroe's voice crackled. Her swift wing, flanked by two loyal Aurelian fighters, shot from a hidden hangar. Where am I taking these bastards? The Echo Hollow, Noah yelled, his eyes on the swirling mother swarm. The Oscura Gap. You have to pull the entire crown swarm into the trap. Pull them, Noah. This is a sentient thing. It is not going to just follow me. It will, Noah said, his voice a low growl. Because I am going to make it angry. He looked across the hall. Zarak was still in his cage, watching, his eyes wide with a predator's curiosity. Gideon, Noah said, open a dual sound channel. Just to that cage. I want to have a tactical duel. The sound in Zarek's cage changed. The roaring silence was replaced by Noah's voice, calm and clear in his ear. You are impressed. I can tell, Noah said, not looking up from his console as he guided Jade's vector. It is a nice piece of tech. Is it not the mesh? Pity you will not get to study it, Zarak snarled. The architect, the little sound wall architect, hiding behind your walls? Your father hid too. On the Hale's hope. He was not very good at it. Noah's fingers paused. Just for a fraction of a second, the mesh flickered. He screamed your name! Zerak hissed, sensing his advantage. He begged for his little architect to save him. I fed on his fear. It was delicious. Noah took a breath. He let the rage, the pure, white-hot revenge, fill him. He did not fight it. He aimed it. He looked up from his console, his eyes locking with Zerak's. He gave the Karth a slow, tired smile. You are a very good predator. Zerak, Noah said, his voice a soft, pitying taunt. But you are a terrible strategist. You rely on fear. It is a single-note instrument, and you are playing it. Poorly. I am the swarm, Zerak roared, slamming his fists against the sound shield. No, Noah said, his voice a blade. You are just an arrogant, overdressed bully who could not even control his own spies. You are a failure. Your entire plan, your stalking, your draining. It all came down to a single, stupid fashion choice. He leaned in, his voice a whisper that Zerak, and only Zerak, could hear. I might lose, Zerak, Noah said. But at least my shoes do not bite their own feet. It was the final cut. The taunt was not a joke. It was the truth. It was his failure, his humiliation, his arrogance, all thrown back in his face by the human rabbit. Zerak lost his temper. He snapped. He threw his head back and screamed. Not a word, but a command, a mistaken rhythm, a single, irrational, furious order to the crown swarm. Forget the lure, kill the anchor, burn the planet, burn it all. He had just ordered his mother swarm to abandon its complex, patient, virtual nest algorithm and make a single, suicidal, rage-fueled charge for the planet's surface. On the tactical display, the vast red cloud coalesced, abandoning its orbital work, and plunged, like a burning spear, straight for the Umbral Plaza, and straight for Jade Monroe's lure. Noah, Jade screamed, her swift wing rattling as the edge of the swarm hit her shields. They are off rhythm. They are not stalking anymore. This is a full-on, blind charge. I know, Noah yelled back, his face covered in sweat. They are not thinking, they are angry. Keep them in the echo hollow. Jade, keep them in the hollow. I cannot hold them for long, she cried, her ship diving into the blackness of the Oscura Gap. The entire crown swarm followed, a river of red sentient rage, pouring into the precise coordinates of Seraphine's reflection shrines. Seraphine, Noah bellowed. She was at his side, her hand on the console next to his. Gideon, now. Probability mesh. Noah whispered. Snap shut! They slammed their hands down. In the Oscura Gap, there was no explosion. There was no light. There was a stasis. The crown swarm, traveling at impossible speeds, hit the probability mesh and stopped. The net of logic and emotional resonance did not destroy them. It caught them. It was a stasis chamber the size of a moon. The swarm's own rage, its own kinetic energy, was reflected, captured, and turned in on itself, trapping the entire collective intelligence in a feedback loop of its own fury. The mother swarm was frozen. In the banquet hall, Zerak stared at the tactical display. The red cloud had vanished. He was alone. Noah Hale stood up from the console. He was shaking. The revenge he had craved was here. He could feel it. He had the scent profile. He had the mesh. He could program it to self-destruct, to annihilate them all. It would start a holy war, but it would be justice. He looked at Seraphine. She was watching him, her face pale, trusting. He turned back to the console. He did not choose destruction. He chose revenge. Gideon, he whispered, his voice cracking. Lock the swarm, but do not kill it. Cut their teeth. He uploaded the scent profile, not as a kill code, but as a virus of disarmament. In the stasis field, the frozen Karth ships, one by one, were forcibly neutralized. Weapon systems were fused, engines were locked, their claws were cut. They were rendered harmless. Then, Noah opened the back of the net. He sent one final command to the frozen, toothless, terrified mother swarm. "Humiliatingly retreat," he whispered. The stasis field dissolved, the crown swarm, conscious, but now disarmed, defanged, and utterly defeated, had no choice. Its virtual nest was gone. Its stalking was over. It turned, and it fled. A humiliating retreat into the dark. The price was instantaneous, as the last red icon vanished from the screen. Noah Hale stood, swaying. The probability mesh had been fueled by two things: the community trust of Aurelia and the personal emotions of its architect, the rage, the grief, the burning need for revenge, the love for his family. It had all been sucked from him. It had been the fuel for the mesh. He was exhausted. Seraphine turned to him, her eyes shining. "Noah, you did it. You—" He opened his mouth. He tried to joke. He tried to say, "Nice shoes," one last time. But no sound came out. His voice was gone. Almost lost his voice. It was a dry, hoarse, rasping sound. A painful breath. The man who had used words as a shield and a weapon, the Soundwall architect, had sacrificed his own voice to save them all. He looked at her, his eyes wide with a strange, new silence. And then Noah Hale collapsed, falling forward into the arms of the Empress, who at last had found her own voice. The table-flipping party had concluded not with applause, but with the stunned silence of a galaxy that had just witnessed a predator become prey. The crown swarm, a creature of mythic terror, had been defanged and sent retreating in humiliation, a cloud of impotent, disarmed rage fleeing into the void. In the grand hall, amidst the wreckage of the feast, Overseer Tserak was a statue of living hatred. His sound cage had not dissolved. He was a trophy, a prisoner of his own reflected fury. Empress Seraphine Kale held the unconscious form of Noah Hale, the Soundwall architect, whose voice had been the price of their victory. He was impossibly heavy, the physical cost of a probability mesh fueled by a lifetime of personal grief. Medics, Seraphine's voice, no longer a silent oath, but a clear, ringing command, cut through the shock. To me. Now, General Hana Ito, her face grim, stepped forward, her silver-clad soldiers securing the perimeter. "Majesty, the city is singing." It was true. The human stone resonance, the billion-voice whisper of "We are the stone, we are the light," had not stopped. The panic was gone, replaced by a profound, planet-wide hum of shared, defiant survival. "The architect," Seraphine said, her hand brushing the damp hair from Noah's forehead. "He needs a doctor, not a military one. A civilian, the best. And him," Hana Ito nodded toward the still raging Tserak. "Him," Seraphine said, her voice dropping to ice. "We place in the Vault of Echoes. Let him see what a 1,000-year memory looks like." The cleanup began. The Karth chaos was absolute. As their mother swarm fled, it left a trail of data, of discarded technology, of scent cores. These were the biological command nodes from the compromised agents, the biomechanical shoes, and the other infiltration devices. They were a roadmap to the Karth's command biology. General Hana Ito, now in full control of the Aurelian fleet, did not pursue excessively. She established a hard perimeter at the border and began the meticulous task of decoding the scent cores. The scent cores were a treasure trove, a complete biological linguistic dictionary of their enemy. On Aurelia Prime, the purge of the Aurelian Council was swift and public. The trials were not secret affairs held in dark rooms. Seraphine ordered them held in the Umbral Plaza, broadcast to the galaxy. The primary evidence was the unedited live broadcast. From the table-flipping party, the entire planet had watched Lord Valerius and his collaboration faction laugh at Noah's joke. They had all watched the biomechanical shoes expose themselves. Valerius, stripped of his titles, his face a mask of disbelief, tried to bluster. It was a trick, a human St. Elmo protocol, a technological illusion. An illusion. Archivist Orlin, no longer a stooped librarian but the chief prosecutor for the new empire, placed a scent core on the evidence table. It was still faintly pulsing. Then perhaps, Lord Valerius, you can explain this illusion. The one that was surgically grafted to your aide's spine. The one that was channeling palace defense codes to Overseer Zerak's flagship. The one that, I am assured, is bespoke. The crowd, the same crowd that had been in a panic only days before, did not cheer. They watched with a cold, clear, resonant anger. The purge was not a revenge. It was a mending of the crack. It was the stone of Aurelia, wounded by betrayal, methodically healing itself. 2 weeks later, Noah Hale woke up. He was not in his velvet prison. He was in the Lumen Garden, the one on the roof, under the real, unfiltered light of the twin suns. The air was warm, and the chiming bellflowers were playing a soft, random melody. He tried to say, "Where?" A sound came out, but it was not a word. It was a hoarse croak, a painful, grating noise, like stones being dragged. "Do not try," a voice said. He turned. Seraphine was sitting next to his bed, not in robes, but in a simple, practical flight suit. She had been reading a data slate. She looked tired and happy. She offered him a glass of water, and he drank. "Your voice," she said. "Your voice." The probability mesh. It sucked the fuel. It took the emotion, but it burned the physical pathways. The doctors say it was the price. He touched his throat. The soundwall architect silenced. The irony was so thick he could have choked on it. He, a man who had lived by jokes and language, was now mute. He looked at her, his eyes filled with 1,000 questions. She understood. She smiled, a small, genuine smile. Hana Ito is mopping up the border. Lord Valerius is now a permanent resident of a very deep, very quiet mine. And Zerak is contemplating art. She held up the data slate. This, however, is the real news. He read the title. The Silent Voice Treaty. An equal alliance, she said, between the Aurelian Empire and the human Commonwealth. No more junior partners. No more weak humans. We share everything. Trade, resources, and a non-lethal technology. Doctrine. She tapped the slate. Based on your mesh and my shrines. A new community defense. We will not build weapons to annihilate. We will build walls to suppress and defang. The galaxy is intrigued. Noah nodded. A slow, painful gesture. He felt recuperating. He felt a strange peace. He had learned to speak less, listen more. He had to. He had no choice. A group of children, aides of the palace staff, crept into the garden, their eyes wide. They were survivors of the panic. They stopped when they saw him. Noah looked at them. He saw the crisis. still in their eyes. He remembered his own duty. Frightened people need a reason to breathe. He slowly, theatrically, pointed at his own simple medical issue slippers. He looked at the children, his face a mask of academic seriousness. He then pointed at Seraphine's rugged, practical flight boots. He raised an eyebrow, as if to say, well. The children stared. And then one of them, a little girl with big, Aurelian dark eyes, giggled. Noah smiled, a slow, hoarse smile. He winked. The rare joke had hit the mark. The children, for the first time in weeks, calmed down. They did not need a speech. They just needed to see that the man who had faced the monster could still see the humor in a pair of shoes. Seraphine watched, her heart full. Later that night, the garden was quiet, lit only by the chiming flowers. Noah's voice was slowly returning, a hoarse rasp, but it was a voice. "You chose silence," he whispered, the words scratching his throat. "I did," she said, "but not because of fear. I believed. My personal honor, my reputation as a strong leader, none of it mattered, only putting the people first. I had to let them think I was weak, so that our real strength, our silent voice, could be built." "The shield," he rasped. "The shield," she agreed. "It was heavy." "I understand," he said, and he did. He looked up at the stars, the ghosts of his family finally quiet. Revenge. It had been a fire in his gut for years, but watching the swarm flee, humiliated, but alive, he finally understood. "It is only meaningful," he whispered, "when it protects the future." His revenge had not been destroying the Karth. It had been this: sitting in a garden, on a healed planet, with a new ally, while children giggled in the sunlight. This was the sublimation of his rage. "Noah," she said, her voice soft. He turned. She was looking at him, not as an empress, not as an ally, but as a woman. The romantic relationship, which had been a silent empathy, forged in crisis, was now something else. It was maturing. She leaned in and kissed him. It was not a kiss of passion, but of trust. It was a kiss that tasted of shared sacrifice, stone and starlight. "Your voice," she whispered against his lips. "It will heal. But this..." She put her hand on his chest. "The part that makes the jokes, that is the part I cannot lose. That is the part Aurelia cannot lose." He smiled. And this time, when he tried to speak, a single, clear word came out. "Okay." The silent voice treaty was more than a document. It was a new industry. The galactic opinion had shifted. The weak human narrative was dead. In its place was a new respect. A species that had the power to create a probability mesh, but chose to control it. A species that used humor as an exhaust valve in a desperate situation. That was a species to be respected. In the old Vault of Echoes, a new research center was established. The Joint Scent Sound Research Center. It was run, jointly, by two unlikely partners. "Archivist Orlin," Jade Monroe said, tapping on a data slate. She was wearing a new, hybrid Aurelian human uniform. "The Scent Core is not just a command language. It is emotional. Look at this." She brought up a complex waveform. "This is the scent for hunger, and this is the scent for fear. But look what happens when you overlay the scent for humiliation." Orlan, his eyes bright with academic fervor, leaned in. "My goodness, it creates a cascade failure. The command biology, it shuts down." This is not a weapon. Pilot Monroe. This is a conversation. Yeah, Jade grinned. A conversation I am dying to have. And then there was Gideon. He is unleashed, Noah rasped, sitting with Seraphine and Hana-Ito in the new alliance. Command Center. He is a consultant, Seraphine corrected, though she was smiling. Gideon's blue sphere pulsed on the central console. His limited permissions had been expanded. Gideon, Hana-Ito said, her voice crisp. Run the final simulation on the Karth remnants. Running. General. Gideon's calm voice filled the room. Analysis complete. The Karth Dominion is functionally extinct as a galactic threat. Their mother swarm is intact, but disarmed. Their Cent Core command structure is compromised. They are a broken tool. Good, Hana-Ito said. However, Gideon continued, that remnant has left an open question. A new file appeared on the main screen. It was not a Karth file. The swarm algorithm, Gideon stated. The new generation one used by the Crown Swarm, it was not Karth. Noah sat up, his hoarse voice forgotten. What the Cent Core data, Gideon said, is a key. It decodes the source code. I have analyzed who was behind the supply. The algorithm did not originate in the Karth Dominion. It is too elegant. It is too human. The blue sphere pulsed. A new location appeared on the star chart. A dark sector deep in the human commonwealth. The code, Gideon said, originates from a single source. A peace laboratory, supposedly shut down 2 decades ago. Seraphine looked at Noah, her eyes wide with a new, dawning horror. A laboratory, Gideon said, run by a single, brilliant mind. The architect of the first-generation probability mesh. Gideon, Noah whispered, his voice cracking. Who? Dr. Calder Wynn, Gideon replied. Your old teacher. The scar left on the galaxy was not one of fire, but of silence. The Karth Dominion, a terror that had stalked the void for 1,000 years, was now a ghost. A broken tool, a remnant, fleeing into the darkness it had once commanded. The galactic opinion was a storm of raw astonishment. The table-flipping party had been broadcast, replayed, and analyzed on every data network. It was the single greatest shift in power the modern age had ever seen. And at the center of it, 2 names. Empress, Seraphine Kale, the weakling leader who had proven to be a strategist of terrifying, patient genius, and envoy Noah Hale, the weak human, the soundwall architect who had sacrificed his voice to build a net that had caught a god. The launch ceremony was held 3 months after the stasis chamber had closed. The joint warship was named Co-Resonance. It was a masterpiece of non-lethal technology. Its hull was not gray steel, but polished, living gloss stone, interwoven with the adaptive, intelligent matrices of human soundwall design. On its bow, the 2 emblems the spiraling resonance of Aurelia. The balanced scales of the Commonwealth were not side by side. They were overlapping, fused into a single, new sigil. Seraphine Kale and Noah Hale stood on the observation deck of the orbital dock, co-hosting the event. Seraphine, in a simple, elegant indigo uniform, looked out at the ship, her face calm and clear. Noah stood beside her. His voice, once hoarse, had returned, though it was quieter, deeper, and he used it less. The recuperation had been slow, but the man who had been exhausted was now solid. She is beautiful, Majesty, Noah said. His voice a low, clear rasp. She is ours. Architect, Seraphine replied, not looking at him. Her voice carrying the quiet pride of 1 billion unified souls. She is not a weapon. She is a charter, an argument, made manifest in stone and light. As the co-resonance slipped its moorings and began its maiden voyage, a wave of a whispered chorus rose from the planet below. The human stone resonance was no longer a defense. It was a song of launch. The public opinion was one of pure celebration, but the private meeting that followed was not. They gathered in Seraphine's dark study, the one where the silent voice treaty had been signed. It was just Seraphine, Noah, General Hana Ito, and Jade Monroe. Archivist Orlan was patched in via a secure comm, and on the central console, Gideon's blue sphere pulsed. "The open question," Seraphine began. "Gideon, report." "As requested, Empress." Gideon's calm, synthetic voice filled the room. "I have completed the decryption of the scent cores and the swarm algorithm you provided." A map appeared on the holographic display. It showed the trail of the code's origin. "The trail does not point to the Karth," Gideon stated. "The Karth were the weapon. They were not the weaponsmith. As I stated, the algorithm is human." Noah leaned forward, his hands clasped. He had lived with this problem for weeks. "The source," Gideon continued, "is, as I identified, the Peace Laboratory in the A sector, a research station thought to be closed." "But why?" Jade Monroe broke the silence, her voice angry. "Why would humans give a mother swarm an algorithm to kill us?" And then Gideon, in his calm, inhuman voice, revealed the twist. "The analysis is conclusive," Gideon said. "The Karth, stalking that lasted many months, was not an invasion. It was an instigation. The algorithm was not given to the Karth. It was leaked to them, in a way they could not resist. It was a lure." "A lure," Seraphine whispered, her eyes widening in a new, cold horror. "Yes, Empress," Gideon said. "The extremist human faction behind this did not want the Karth to win. They wanted them to attack. They wanted to force Aurelia to its knees. They wanted to create a crisis so profound, so devastating, that this world would have no choice but to cry out for a savior." "A savior," Noah breathed, the words tasting like ash, "so that humanity could rescue them." "And then lead the galaxy," Seraphine finished, her voice flat. "Hegemony, in the name of order." It was a scenario so twisted, so arrogant, that the room fell into a stunned silence. They had been played, not just Aurelia, all of them. The stalking of Noah's family, the draining, all of it. It was a setup. "Who?" Hana Ito said, her voice a single deadly piece of steel. "The mastermind," Gideon said. "The architect of the first-generation probability mesh. The man who taught soundwall theory to the Commonwealth." The display changed, showing a file photo. A man, older, with kind, intelligent eyes and a warm, professorial smile. "Dr. Calder-Wynn," Gideon stated. "Your old teacher." Noah felt the blood drain from his face. It was not possible. Wynn was a pacifist. He was the one who wrote the charter on non-lethal technology. He was the man who had taught Noah that power must always be bound by morality. He is a scholar," Noah managed, his hoarse voice shaking. "Not an extremist." As if summoned by his name, the room's secure comms, the ones patched to Archivist Orlan, suddenly jammed. A secure channel request flashed on the screen. It was not a request. It was a demand. "Gideon," Noah commanded. "Isolate it, trace it." "It is untraceable," Gideon replied. "The channel is coming from inside my own core architecture. It is him." The image of Archivist Orlan vanished, replaced by the live image of the man from the file. Dr. Calder Wynne. He looked older, his kind eyes now holding a different kind of light. A fanatic's light. He was in a lab, a clean, white, sterile environment. Noah, Dr. Wynne said. His voice, the same warm, professorial tone that had guided Noah's entire education. My boy, look at you, the architect. You have become magnificent. Wynne, Noah breathed. What have you done? What needed to be done, Wynne said, his smile patient, as if explaining a complex equation. The galaxy was chaotic, weak. The Karth were a cancer, yes, but the real disease was consensus. Committees, treaties, silence when action was needed. I gave the galaxy a common cold, Noah, so it would accept the cure. You instigated, Noah said. You murdered thousands. My family. The price of order, Wynne snapped, his voice losing its warmth for a second. The probability mesh, Noah. My mesh. It was designed to create order, and order is not democratic. It is absolute. I was setting the stage. The Karth, Mother Swarm would have brought Aurelia to its knees. And you, my brilliant student, you would have saved them. You would have been the hero. Humanity would have been the leader. And I would have given you the hegemony you deserved. Wynne leaned in, his eyes glowing. The plan failed. You were too creative. You allied with them. He jested with disgust. But it is not too late. Return, Noah. Return to me. Return to the ideal. We can still build it. Order. In the name of peace. He was offering Noah a hegemony built on a throne of lies and bones. Noah looked at Seraphine. She was watching him, not Wynne. Her face was calm. Then she did something extraordinary. She reached forward, her hand moving with calm precision, and she muted the microphone. The channel was still live. Wynne was still talking, but they could not hear him. Seraphine looked at Noah. She did not speak. She did not have to. Her silence was a trust so absolute, so profound. It took his breath away. She was not his co-commander. She was not his empress. In that moment, she was the anchor. She was letting Noah decide for himself. Noah looked at the muted, passionate, insane image of his old teacher, the man who had given him everything. He unmuted the microphone. Wynne stopped, his rant cut short. Noah. Your theory is flawed, Doctor, Noah said, his voice quiet, his hoarseness gone, replaced by a cold, clear resonance. You taught me that a probability mesh needs a nucleus to stabilize. You taught me that it resonates. I did, Wynne said, smiling. And fear is the strongest resonance of all. No, Noah said. You are wrong. Hegemony, order, built on fear that is not stable. It is a system under pressure. A resonance of fear does not create order. It creates cracks, and eventually, inevitably, it collapses. It eats itself. Noah leaned forward, his eyes, the eyes of the Soundwall architect, seeing the final equation. You taught me that the mesh needs an anchor. I found one. Voluntary consensus. You call it weakness. I call it flexibility. It does not break under pressure. It bends. It adapts. Your ideal doctor. It is just a stasis chamber. And you are the only prisoner. Wynne's face went white. I refuse, Noah said. He looked at his own console, at the St. Elmo protocol, the nice shoes protocol he had armed. It was still linked to Gideon. Gideon, Noah said, his voice low. You have the trace, you know where he is. I do, Noah, the AI replied. Activate gray code, Noah Hale commanded. Protocol. Shoe drop. It was a code he had built, based on Wynn's own work, not a kill code. A freezing. In his sterile lab, 1,000 light-years away. Dr. Calder. Wynn looked down, a mesh of cold. Blue light was rising from the floor. His own theory turned against him. Noah! He screamed. You cannot order! Goodbye, Doctor, Noah said. He cut the channel. The lab cluster was frozen. The evidence, all of it, the plan, the algorithm. The instigation was given to the Commonwealth. Humanity's purge was not silent. It was public. It was painful. Humanity self-purged. The Peace Laboratory and all its factions were brought before the galaxy, not by Aurelians, but by humans. It was the single greatest act of responsibility the galaxy had ever seen. The message was clear. Humanity was respectable, not because it was perfect, but because it dared to fix its own mistakes. A week later, on the Umbral Plaza, Empress Seraphine Kale announced the Charter of Co-Resonance. She stood on the dais, the delegations of 100 worlds before her. Power, she said, her voice a co-resonance with the resonance of her people, is only legitimate when it is bound by the co-resonant voice of those who are affected. Hegemony is collapse. Consensus is strength. The charter was passed, and the human delegation, led by a quiet, rasping-voiced envoy, signed first. The final scene was quiet. The delegations were leaving. The plaza was emptying. The whispered chorus of the new order had settled over the planet. Noah and Seraphine stood alone on the dais, watching the co-resonance warship patrol the glowing sky. He was quiet for a long time. She was wearing her new combat boots. Simple, black, durable, practical. He tilted his head, looking down at them. A slow, warm smile spread across his face. The joke was gone. The code word was gone. The weapon was gone. Seraphine, he said, his voice just for her. Yes, Noah. He looked at her shoes. Nice shoes, he said. It was, this time, a pure compliment. She looked down, then looked back at him, her eyes shining with a quietly bursting emotion. Seraphine Kale, the Empress of Resonance, laughed. Noah Hale, the Soundwall architect, laughed with her. The curtain closed, not on an explosion, but on laughter, and the whispered chorus of a plaza. Finally, truly, at peace.